Welcome to the Rachel and Ron Show, featuring fun and deep discussions about the things that affect female entrepreneurs most, as well as tangible tools to grow their business, all the while living their best lives. And now, give it up for your hosts, Rachel and Ron. Rachel, you and I are kind of matching today. Like, I'm not matching color-wise. I got maroon and dark blue, but like the style. This is a new shirt, and it's like,
Nice.
I feel like stylistically.
You know what? When you leaned in, I got a sense of what it was. But when you were back, I just thought you were wearing like a black top.
I know.
Classic.
When I dropped out of acting school in 2003, my first job was working at like a natural food store back in the day before like Whole Foods bought everything. This is 2003. And the guy told me not to wear black shirts. And I've never worn a black shirt since 2003.
So, wait, I'm really fascinated by this. Why did you live so devotedly?
Wait, what? I lost
you. Why did you listen to him so devotedly?
Oh, this is a great question. I was like, this guy was intense, man. He was like a cult leader. So he was doing raw foods. Like he was like a raw food pusher. And so I found the store. I was so broken on the inside. I came back, from New York, and it was it was the first time in life that I ever did anything legit. Like I got accepted into a prestigious school in New York, Circle in the Square, which is like a Broadway theater that has a training program and everything. And like the teachers are the same from Juilliard. And here I was like, I made it, right? I got into school, and I 2 weeks before I left for New York, I told her, I'm like, yeah, I don't know actually. I don't know if I really want to go to the school. And she's like, it's the one time that you've ever gotten into somewhere legit. You should go and try it, which I understand. So I went, hated it, dropped out, came back, and I was like on the floor, And this was the first job, it was just like something till I figured my stuff out. And this guy was so dogmatic and he was like a zealot. Like he was so intense. And like he had all these, it was in Wilmette, Illinois, which is a very wealthy area. And so he had all these like wealthy women coming in, and they were like, the guy's name was Ralph. They're like, Ralph, like my stomach is killing me. I want to throw up. I'm in so much pain. Oh my God. And he's like, you got to just keep going. You got to keep trying, plowing through. He had this like intensity about him. And so I came in and like, I listened to everything. I did raw foods, and I had esophageal cramping. It was so painful. I would get like my stomach hurt like all the time.
And he said, keep at it.
Keep at it, keep going, But the black shirt thing, for some reason, I don't know, that like is the only thing that started. I eventually, quit the raw foods, but the black shirt thing was like, I don't know. I don't wear black anymore. Yeah, like
that's fascinating.
Many years. Do you wear black?
Yeah, I do. But I will say that like since we've gotten into Zoom world,
yeah,
I am much more inclined towards color. I feel like, from the waist up, I think about maybe the necklace I'm wearing or the top, because I don't know. I just feel like black kind of can be boring if that's what we're looking at all day.
Well, this is an interesting point too. So I was looking at a colleague of mine. Her name is Cindy Skalicki, who's also a public speaking coach, and she is awesome, very talented. So she posted, I saw on LinkedIn, this question about like going back, like when we go back, like what are the big public speaking things? And a lot of people wrote on her timeline. They're like, do we have to go back? Like Zoom is kind of working, like, So it is interesting, like how just moving forward, like I know I didn't realize like how dark this looks. Like I kind of want to change.
It's
but
okay.
I'm not going to.
It's okay.
But like with Zoom,
I mean, we could. It's totally fine if you want to do a wardrobe change mid-show. I'm cool with that. Like if you need, if you need to do that and.
Well, I'm too excited. I'm too excited for our guest today. But
yeah.
Rachel, how are you? I'm just talking. How are you, Rachel?
I'm doing great. Oh my gosh. So a lot of things over the last few days. So my best friend of 42 years, she and her husband came, and I found out they were coming about 2 weeks ago, but they surprised the kids. So it's been a wonderful several days of having them here. They're vaccinated. So it just felt like normalcy. And then this unbelievable snowstorm that hit Denver, it's just had us like hunkering down and relaxing a lot of family time. So it's been a really nice few days.
That's great. You look rested. You look very rested.
Oh, thank you. Well, yeah. I also haven't been eating dairy, sugar, or wheat, which I feel like gives me a little bit more of the glow look.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, but I do. I feel rested, and I feel like I actually had a staycation, like a little vacation right here at home, especially with our internet not working yesterday. At first, that gives me this like agitated feeling. I'm like,
Yeah.
but I have things to do, and I have emails to send, and I can't do anything. And like, it makes me feel unsettled. But once I lean into it, I'm like, okay, I can't, right? There's nothing I
Yeah.
can do. I might as well just enjoy the day. So we took a long walk outside and just sat around talking, and the kids watched a movie. And, like I think I have to, it still takes me that intentional readjusting though, every
Mm.
time I have to shift into relaxation or vacation mode because I'm such a workaholic.
This is huge, right? Like this is the big lesson I'm learning, especially now we're a year into, like, literally it's a year into pandemic.
Yep.
Like, I think last year we had this go 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 energy. Like, for a lot of people there was like, wait, are people still making money? Are people still doing their businesses? Yeah, okay, they are. Okay, go go go, cuz tomorrow it might end. You don't know, Blah. And then I feel like everyone I'm talking to, and especially like I feel it, the past 3 weeks, I was just done. Like I feel like I like resting was something that was like the universe like, no 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 no, you need a rest, like you need to do it. So like if I had a pocket where I didn't have my child or I didn't have a call or something, I was like couch
Yeah.
conked out.
Yeah.
Sunday was, while it was like snowing, was the hardest day for me because I couldn't pick up my daughter because they were like, we were all snowed in. And so I was like in my apartment, and then for like an hour and a half or so, the power went out. So I'm like in my apartment by myself, snowing, can't do it. And so I was like, all right, like go take a nap.
Right. But I find like the more I lean into those opportunities and listen to what my mind and body are asking for, the easier things get.
Mm,
But it's still, like I said, it's still like a practice that I have to talk myself through,
yeah,
right? Like, oh, Rach, your body's asking for something. Right. Okay. So you could either give it, right?
yeah,
Give your body and your mind what it needs right now, or you can keep that tension going and keep ignoring it, but it doesn't go away until you feed it.
right.
Kind of like my
And it's
kids,
support.
actually. Just as I said that, I'm like, that is totally what happens with my kids.
I love your face so much. When you made that realization, like it like dawned on you. It like you're like my kids.
Oh, that's funny.
you know,
Um,
yeah.
oh, go ahead.
We were talking before the call, like before we started recording, about I just discovered, or someone sent me a link to Brooke Castillo, the coach. She's like I feel like she's, so many of my concert was like, oh, I know I'm not Anthony Robbins. She is like, my understanding is like she is gonna eclipse that guy in the best way possible. Like, right, like she's en route
Yeah,
to being more powerful
she's
than.
amazing. She's of the life coach school. I actually follow her self-coaching model. I teach that now.
Wow.
And yeah, she's got a lot of really powerful uh, tools and wisdom that I love listening to her. She's
She's
great.
incredible. She blew my
Hmm.
mind. So I was, while like I was, you know, sequestered. Is that the right term? While I was stuck in the house, I was listening to her stuff, and so she said, actually, it was something that really made me feel good. She's like, from 0 to 100,000, or she said 0 to 300,000, something to this effect. That's when you get exhausted. She's like, from 300,000 to a million, though, in profit, she's like, that's when you learn to slow down, to relax more, to systemize your process. And so that got me like obsessed. So like all day, even though I was trying to rest, I was like writing in my notepad because no power. But I was like, all day I was like obsessed with, how do I scale? How do I scale? How do I get to these big numbers? And
Yeah.
that created a whole stress in and of itself. I emailed you probably like 30 times, like, Rachel, what about this? What about that?
But
But
that's what it's about too. I love
yeah,
that you did that because that's really what it's about. I think people often think like, oh, the next path will just present itself. And in a lot of ways it does, but it still takes this like mindful, how are we going to scale? And sometimes it requires scaling back in certain places before being able to scale forward. And so I think you're just playing around with like, what piece of the business do I really want to scale? Like, do I want to kind of get in bed with, right? Like, be
Yeah.
there committed for a long time and really deepen that impact. And that's where the growth occurs. So I think you're doing it all right.
Well, thank you, Rachel. I learned from the best. Um, and that was such a sweet song. I know. But this is what a great segue to bring on our guest who has done that in a big way and is rocking it in that department, right? And she helps other people in this department too.
Yeah, I'm so proud to introduce Francisca Mixx. Francesca and I met in January of 20 or December 2019. She came to one of my goal setting events. I think that might have been my second annual goal setting event. And she was on a mission. So, welcome, Francisca. Since then, it's been a complete joy and like awesome ride watching you soar.
Thank you so much, Rachel and Ron, for having me here. And yeah, I can't believe it was back in December of 2019 when it all started. I knew I needed support to provide me the information that I didn't have. I didn't go to school or get a degree or even listen to any podcast or any of that around business and how to create, how to build and grow and really fine tune my why and how to do it and implement. So I can't wow. And then you throw a pandemic in the mix and that only just cranked up motivation and thirst for really diving deeper into what I've been up to. So I
You, you,
can't thank you enough.
can I jump into that? So that thirst, did that thirst come from like I'm gonna use this as an analogy, like being dehydrated, or did the thirst come from seeing an opportunity to help on a larger scale, right? Like, what was driving that thirst?
Yeah, well, I am a type A. So I naturally bring whoop whoop. There is just that energy that I have. And I've been in my field in mental health as a therapist and educator trainer for quite some time. And so I got to a place where I knew that I could help more. And I believed in myself after 15 years of training the future of mental health professionals in the state of Colorado. I was like, okay, I guess I can trust that I kind of know what I'm doing. So there was that huge piece of acknowledging and really just taking ownership of, wow, I have impact, and it's okay to take ownership of that. And in fact, if I don't take ownership that I really care what I do, I'm passionate, and I am thirsty to just keep impacting, hopefully in a positive way, my community, that's what just really, brought on even more for me as far as wanting to do more. And so starting out with one-to-one and now, working with Rachel, and I got it foundational, like it was just game changer, 100,000% a game changer, with those pieces that I knew I lacked. And working with you, Rachel, was just like exactly what I needed, to just get me to it's a mindset. It's like a different mindset. So that's,
I actually wanted to ask you about that. You just mentioned this belief, like you're like, I didn't go to school, but I believed that I could do this, right? So I wanted to ask you, do you think that belief can be learned? So you just talk
absolutely.
about it being a mindset. So there's like this spectrum. Like, how much belief do you think people have to dive in with from the beginning versus what they can cultivate along the way?
Gosh, this is one of the things that I work with in consultation with other private practitioners. And it's in a nutshell, identity formation. When we start looking at identities and how we identify, there is fluidity with our identities and how we identify. And belief is definitely something that begins with a spark of curiosity, and that can transform and deepen into, this is how I identify. And that happens along the way, right? As adults, we start out, well, we're kids, we live with mom and dad, whatever the situation was when we're kids, but then we leave the nest and we start kind of, challenging the mindset or the teachings of family to really say, okay, wait, no, this is what I want to do now, right? This is what I believe now. And you see this in professionals all the time. And I just, yeah, you bring a certain component to it, but then over time, here's the a golden nugget: surround yourself with people that you see something in them that you want, because it's not that you're going to be a mini me version of that person, but there is a community that you can be very selective and hand pick those community members to provide you just with the spark, or maybe a little tip along the way that really supports the development and the belief in oneself over time. Because the way we identify, it changes. Before kids, I never identified as a parent, but now that I have kids, that's now become part of my identity. So it's a fluid thing, and more often than not, we have more say in it. And that's something that I work toward. I try to not only talk the talk, but I challenge myself to walk the walk of empowerment, and realizing, wait, I'm going to use a big word here. I'm actually the creator of my experience. Whether I say yes, maybe not today, whatever it might be, that's something that I have worked on. And I'm like, my hands are not strangling that concept, but just I keep it right here and it's fluid. So I've really appreciated my journey thus far. And, with the pandemic, it's definitely exacerbated or magnified potential. It's magnified the gaps, the lows, it's magnified the highs. Very much like children, it just magnifies what is. And so I've been very fortunate in my industry that it was a simple turn off the brick and mortar office and then buy my ring and sit in front of my computer and do the video zooming, now that's a word, I guess, and approach and connect in this format. And so that's definitely been a huge component in my ability to scale. Before I was pretty much limited, and that was a mindset. Like the pandemic cracked the ceiling of how do we deliver services. It's cracked the ceiling is no longer there. I mean, it's been clear the whole time, but it's fresh air all around now. Now I'm able to actually connect with people in different states that prior pandemic, I was in that, okay, I go to my office, they come in and we do our thing, whether it's a one-to-one or in a group format or even in a workshop, because those are things that I provide. So one-to-one to a group to a class or a workshop, I already have scaling abilities. But now with this approach to how we deliver, the format in which we utilize, it's even gotten wider. My reach is even wider now. And like I said, it's been challenging with the pandemic, and I've just been very fortunate enough to really just nestle my way in those gaps of how businesses ran and how we actually have impact in community. So I've been very blessed.
Was there ever an issue? This is a great point. And this is definitely what I'm struggling with. Was there ever an issue of envisioning the transformation or the transition from the one-on-ones? Like, so I get, like, you saw opportunity when things opened up with Zoom and all that, were you able to, or was there ever an issue in terms of like, okay, how do I take what's working in brick and mortar and digitalize it, or expand it when I'm not in front of people? Was there ever like a thing, and how did you work through that?
You know, hmm. I've, I've been doing what I've been doing for quite some time, and in a different capacity as far as, I was still in high level of leadership in an agency and navigating, overseeing lots of people and delivering services in multiple formats. And that's something that I brought with me when I opened up my business. And I started my private practice almost 3 years ago. So my experience was it's slightly different in the sense that when I opened up my business, I already had clients. It was a very the challenging transition for me actually was more the was me, whereby it was me getting over or getting myself out of my own way with my insecurities, with that ownership of, oh, I'm a small business owner. Whoa, like developing this new identity about myself.
I love that. Like not limiting your title to therapist,
Right.
but opening that up and like broadening that definition. That's so good.
I mean, that right there, I speak to this, the confident mindset in private practice. And it is a mindset shift from, oh, I'm a therapist who has a private practice, because that's the tendency in mental health, right? Or maybe for some coaches who are just starting out, right? That one-to-one, like, oh, there's a downplay of the services or the worth or value of what we're doing, to having that shift to, oh, I'm a small business owner who offers therapeutic services. I also offer consultation as well as, and so on and so forth. So that mindset of I'm a small business owner, game changer, because when a person kind of fills or puts their foot in that shoe, there are many more windows in this house that people will look through.
How did you make that shift though, Francesca? Because I think that that's what a lot of people are struggling with, is that shift. So the first thing, you may not even realize that they're getting in their own way. But then the second thing is when they do realize it, they're not sure how to get out of it. So what can you say to those people?
Get support, hands down. Hands down. This is not intended to be the lone wolf warrior approach. That's also one of the hurdles, whereby, is it okay to ask for help? I'm a type A. That's a hard one for me, because I'm confident I can do it, and I got to a place where I said, you know what, ego, step aside, like it's okay to ask for help. It's part of the process. I think when we start identifying how, like a new way of how we identify, like the small business owner was something that was new. Like I'm familiar with business owners in different arenas of, realtors who own their own companies, to, my ex-husband, he was an entrepreneur in the multi-million-dollar realm of business ownership, but it was never me that put the foot in the shoe. And I think that was one of the first things of like, oh, so wait, you mean to tell me that I'm the one who's going to do the marketing and I'm the one who's now responsible to do this? Oh, that would make sense because I'm now a small business owner. And again, I reached out. I reached out and I started working with you, Rachel, and it was a game changer. When I say a game changer, it was, oh, business, that's what it actually means, right? Like this is how it's done. You've got your to-dos, which that actually, it's important to have, but I have found that working with the folks that I've worked with thus far, it's more an inside out kind of a job, because the marketing, the social media, the blogging, the content, the whatever, copy for this, that, and the other. It's an extension of who you are. And like I said, it's an identity formation. I mean, it's kind
Francesca,
of big.
Francesca, this is so huge, and I have to like. I'm sorry to be awkward, Rachel, but I have to put this out there. You nailed it, Francesca, because um, you said like most of us didn't go to business school, right? So to make that transition, it is hard to make that transition without someone like Rachel. Like, and so the more you're talking, I have to say like this might be totally awkward, Rachel, but like the more you're saying it, I was like, Rachel, you are a gift. Like
Oh, yeah.
everything you're saying, I experienced the exact same thing. And like by working with Rachel, I know so many people that same thing. They're just like, oh my god, I would have never gotten this far without Rachel kind of synthesizing everything. So I have to put that out there. Sorry, quick
No,
promo.
Thank you guys. Thank you both. Well, I think, Francesca, you have had a very, you've had just a really beautiful evolution of your business. And I think you've learned some pretty powerful lessons about scaling that I'd love for you to share. Specifically, kind of what you felt like were the pieces that needed to be in place before you could start to grow in that way. I was going to say something else, but you know what? I'm just going to let you respond to that.
well, one of the things that, again, this identity, that mindset shift, and realizing that it's fluid. So it's going to morph and constrict, and like this whole process of the give and take along the way. It is not a stagnant experience. It's very dynamic. So having that understanding, number one, is pretty important. I do believe that having the basics, a basic understanding of how these moving parts come together in a business, foundational. I, you know, it, I'm an operations person, like hands down. I'm an operations queen. I can, and that's just because of the experience that I'm bringing with me before I started my business. But having that big picture map, if you will, just to say, oh, in this area, we've got systems. Like, what are the systems of a business? In this area, we have, your business plan, and that gets broken down into online, face to face, like how to navigate website, like all these little pieces. But I found that having that big picture gives you the lay. You're oriented. That's so important to kind of know. Well, where's the mountain range? Where was the Snowmageddon storm? Right, it was right here in Colorado. And where's the sunny palm trees? Well, you can go to Florida or you can go to California, but being oriented to understand the map, I think, is so important, because if you don't know where you are, it's pretty challenging to figure out how to get to where you want to go. And that is foundational. Not only is it important to know that, like, the pieces that make up this map, but there's also the internal experience of, okay, the good enough concept. Is it good enough? That's what we're working with. You just have to be good enough. You can't have everything perfect, which, I will reword. And I'm like, that's enough already. I get, so that good enough concept approach is pretty important, because you can reword a draft 50 times, and every time you go to it, you can change it, because you're going to find, oh, I like this rather than that. So knowing where you are really does help, knowing how the pieces come together, and then walking with that good enough concept of, like, just get started. And over time, with that feedback loop of, oh, I write this, get a second set of eyes. It's so important, so that you can rest assured that what you have is good enough. It's not too wonky. It makes sense. You can get feedback with, how did it impact you? Did you have a visceral experience? Did it make you curious? Did you want to read more after reading what I have created? Like, that community is paramount.
Yeah, I love that
Community.
good enough concept. And I often talk about it with different words as well, as like just take the first step. But really this idea of perfecting everything is the very thing that holds people back, right? Because if you wait for perfection, you're just going to be waiting forever.
Forever.
And so for those of us who are type A in the not diagnosable sense, but just self-acclaimed, this is a hard concept. And so what you're describing, and certainly what I've experienced, is that when we are in community with other people who are walking in similar shoes, that act of being able to step out on our own becomes easier because we're supported, we're being held up by the group, we're being cheered for whatever progress we make, right? However we put ourselves out there, and with this in a safe environment to learn, like how can we also grow this piece of content, right? How can we grow in our skills? How can we develop this further? But that's such a big one, such a big one. The other one that you've talked about before has been this concept of focusing. So can you talk a little bit about that, of really narrowing down, like going from serving clients one-on-one as a therapist to figuring out what is next, and that concept of focus, interplaying with that?
It's a practice, actually, and very much like athletes, it's easy to kind of access what I mean by a practice. You have to practice. You don't have to do anything, honestly, but to scale requires stretching, requires the awareness that it's going to get awkward. The pose in yoga, your pose that you're like, I'm going to hold for just an additional second. And that's all I need to do. So that focusing, it's how to develop a practice and be oriented to like, okay, I'm going to step out to the ledge a little bit. And I'm just going to stay here and just realize that I'm okay. It's not perfect. I don't have to be perfect. I can then come back to my community and say, hey, what did you think? Can you give me some feedback? There is this sense of being, open, receptive to feedback is so important. And when it comes to the scaling and focusing, it's like, number one, choosing one thing is something you said, Rachel, a lot. Like, we're visionaries. I have like over 150 things in my mind about, I could do this, or I could repurpose that and then do it this way and then do it that way. And that's not very helpful though. So having the ability to say, I'm going to focus here, and I'll say, I'm going to put you aside for just right now. I'm not letting you go, but you're going to be over here for me. That ability to stay contained and maintain your attention and slowly cross off the list is what gets the job done. I'm all into vision boards, and I was mentioning earlier, my vision board was a little bit later this year. I didn't complete until the end of February. So I do this every month in January, and every January. And the theme of this vision board, pretty much in a nutshell, is that perfection doesn't exist, and it's small steps, greater gain. And that is what I keep going back to really get me to where I want to go. And that is, how can I continue with the impact that I want to have, but at a larger scale. And it does require flexing different muscles. It does require saying no. It does require that focus and attention of keep your eye on the prize, stay connected with the why. Like, I do this every morning. Before my feet touch the floor from my bed, I've already done a really nice little yawn stretch. And I've already listed 3 things in my mind that I'm grateful for. It's amazing how gratitude and grace supports the entire process, because there are things that as a small business owner, I know we don't like doing. I have yet to find a job or a role that I'm in that I love every little minute of it. I have come to learn to appreciate a lot in business, but it's not my natural, oh, I love this stuff, like social media.
This
Not
is
my thing.
like you nailed it, man. You totally nailed it. Like let me ask you this then too. So you've hit up so many great ideas, and so great points that have to do a lot with like imposter syndrome and stepping into yourself as a business owner and all that. How would you like in terms of and I agree, and I think that everything you said too with like regards to the things you don't want to do with your business and all that. Like I could see where that would really constrict people from wanting to expand. What do you think are like the three best ways for someone who's like listening to this right now? Maybe she's a year or two into her business and she's seeing the potential. Like, what would you like? Just like one, two, three. Like, what are the top three kind of bullet points that you give her to scale?
Well, one, there is going to be something close to this internal experience that you feel like you're running ragged, like you're running around, like you can't keep up with the demand. If you feel that, then it's time. If you believe that, oh, if I could only have another hour, then you're probably ready to start looking at how can I deliver and engage with what I'm passionate about slightly differently. So if you're trying to find that extra hour to take on that client, you might be ready to start scaling. And then if you take a step back to do some, in mental health therapists, we are phenomenal at showing up for our clients. And I I tell all my folks that I work with who are ready to grow and build their businesses, it's even when you're just starting with the idea, right? It's like your company is now a client of yours. Get it on your calendar because I know you'll show up. And that hour or two is for strategic planning. It's to be soaring high to see the ebbs and flows and the rhythms of your company. When you're at that place of, I don't have enough time, if I could only fit one more in, that strategic planning, the hawk eye, soaring high to see the ebbs and flows is so important, because it's so easy to get stuck in just the doing, like a mouse, like I'm in the field eating the cheese, right? Not paying attention to what's higher up. So scaling requires a different perspective. But if you're feeling that if I only had another hour, you're probably ready to scale. Having your strategic hour for figuring out what are the themes that I'm working with. How might I identify those things? Say you're working with lots of people, all of a sudden they're calling you to work with bicycles or something, who knows. You might realize that, oh my gosh, like I'm getting a lot of calls, so why not create a workshop or like an online class around that topic, that very topic that people just keep hitting you up for? That's how you scale. So you go from one person to 10 to even 5 people in a class, right? Or you may actually offer your current caseload, I'm considering starting a group. Now, like I said, to scale does require saying no, and it kind of puts you on the edge or the fence a little bit to say, I'm in this limbo phase of, well, if I do a group, I might not make as much money because I'm taking my one-to-one fee. Let's just say, $10, 10 people, that's $100. Well, if I offer a group and I offer it to those 10 people, you're not going to charge $10 for the group. It's going to be a lower. But what you do is you create more space to then start another group. And before you know it, you're not working smarter. You're not working harder, excuse me, you're working smarter so that you can scale. So the same amount of 60-minute hour time, you will have 1, 2, 5, 25 people in the same hour of output. That is scaling.
Yeah, and that's the piece that is so important, is that people think, first of all, I love what you said about needing to create space to work on your business rather than just in your business. Like looking at your business as a client, so important, so good. The second is seeing that you're fully booked and you don't have more space to take on clients. And then that third piece of like going deep. So when you settle on the thing, right? If it's like a certain group or a certain program that you're going to offer, is that you have to keep going and deepening that and offering it to more people, right? Because that's where the scale comes from. That's where the increased revenue comes from. You're not going to experience that increase at 5 or 10 people. You're going to experience it at 25. So you have to keep at it. And I think it's that consistent commitment that becomes the thing that is hard for people, and where they start to question, is this really going to work? Is this working? Am I doing it right? And so just because you had a fully booked business and maybe you had some mind drama even getting to that point does not mean that at the next stage you won't have different mind drama, right? And so we have to continually embrace this process and this practice of connecting with ourselves, connecting with others around us who can support us on that journey.
Yeah, with each new thing, there's a learning curve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In almost everything that we're doing. And there's that feedback loop. And so if you're at a place of like, oh, I'm going to offer a group, right? I'm going to offer this new program and it's in a group format. I'm still reviewing the same content as I would one-to-one. I'm now expanding it in a group format. There's still a learning curve with that. And the learning curve is those small, consistent steps for the greater gain. And there's also this thing that we think, oh yeah, I can't tell you how many great ideas I have. And it actually takes time to cultivate and nurture. And it's like, just because you want to be pregnant doesn't mean you're going to have a kid after that thought. Like it takes 9 months or maybe longer or less, but there's a gestational period of like, we have to nurture and provide the air and the life. We start with the skeleton idea, and then you go to your community or your coach or whoever, someone who's maybe several steps down the path that you want to be on, right? Hey, what do you think? You're soundboarding. And then slowly over time, you're starting to add the meat to the bone. And then you actually launch with an idea and you get feedback from that. And so what I have found for me, when I launch a group, it actually takes me 2 to 3 launches to really have confidence in what I'm doing. And it's not facilitating the group. I have that because I've done that already, right? Like I said, I've been doing what I've been doing for a while, right? It's the marketing piece. It's the other stuff that I kind of don't like. And yet I am so willing to do. And I've grown to appreciate those things, because without those things, I can have the best ideas and it's not going to go anywhere.
This is you just. I tell you. I'm sorry, ladies. I'm mansplaining. I apologize. Oh my god, I mean, what you just said is like the biggest. Like that was like the hair in the sink. That like now everything's coming through. Nancy McKay is gonna heckle that example that I just gave, and I'm okay with that. Francesca, that was perfect, because that's what I've been struggling with. Is I've been feeling bad. I come from like the theater world and comedy world and all stuff. And prior to moving into my business, and like ideas were great. Like I'm used to having ideas. In business, I put so much constriction around every idea having to work. If I start a group, there has to be at least 6 people, and it has to go really well. And like the perfectionism, which I don't normally like play with, like it's a stunning business. So like you just totally freed me out. Francesca, you are my hero. Let me ask you, how do people, I want people to work with you. How do people get a hold of you? You are awesome.
Well, thank you. Well, there's multiple ways. Obviously, there's my website, franciscacc.com. I have a phone line. I'm sure, both you and Rachel will post it somewhere, or, oh, I'm dinging over here. I've got my,
That's proof in the pudding right there. People are contacting you as we speak,
someone's
guys. Come on. The schedule's
calling.
filling up.
Yeah, I've just been really, really fortunate with my website so far. And like I said, working with Rachel was a game changer. Hire
Oh,
her, and yeah, like
thank
social
you.
media, Francesca Consulting and Counseling, the handle of on Facebook, I know about Instagram. I mean, I'm not perfect. I'm still not there, but I have it, I'm almost there. Right. And
Yeah.
that's the thing. It's like, where's the good enough? Where are my small baby
Yeah.
steps to
I
get
call it
me where I
going and
want to go?
growing. You're still
Yeah,
going and growing, and that's all part of the process. You're
And
doing
that
awesome.
and
absolutely.
that yeah, your transparency like was really inspiring, Francesca. Like to get up here and be like, yo, like it took time. It took a few, like you said, like the first launch didn't land every time. Like that's huge, and I think that's really important for a lot of people to hear. Yeah,
Yeah.
big time.
Thank you for joining us, Francisca.
Thank
We
you
loved
for having
having
me. I had
you.
a great time.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. These are really important concepts. I get asked this all the time. In fact, somebody even asked, I think last week, it was either in Sheer Impact or in Real Momentum about, how do I know when I'm ready for that next thing?
Yeah.
And, she nailed it with, you're either fully booked or you're finding that you don't have any to fit in the people who are calling. It's about that demand. You've created a funnel and a level of momentum where that demand exceeds what you can offer. And it's not about, I want to clarify, it's not about you running out of time because you're spending 80% of your time writing content for social media. That's really important because it's all about those revenue generating activities and being fully booked in that way.
Yeah. And but I love too that she talks about grace, or like in the curiosity at first, the curiosity and shifting the mindset, because like I think a lot of people too are curious. Like they're like, hey, you know what? Even if they're at like 75% capacity or 60% capacity, and they're like, you know what? But wait, I am getting kind of tired. Like I can see where if I go to 80%, I'm going to be fried, right? So I'm curious, what if I start dabbling into this realm of group coaching or expansion in this way or speaking or whatever. So that was really cool to hear her just kind of be like, have grace. Because this was the thing we spoke about before
Yeah.
the call. Like, so I heard Brooke Castillo and her team were talking about like how they just in the past year went from some of them went from like $10,000 to 150,000 and all these things. And so I got excited and I was like, oh, I could see where I could make an obscene number. Like I wrote it out and I did what you've taught me and I looked at numbers and I was like Rachel style WWRD, what would Rachel do? And I was like, you know, and I did the thing and I was like, oh my god, that's an obscene. That's like my dad at his like height, like at his height of
Yeah.
his like entre like the height
Well,
salary. And I was like, and so, but then I got really anxious about it because I was like, you know what? I'm a single dad 50% of the time. I have the kid 50% of the time. I like if I did this, like if I commit to this, like I'm just not going to be there for that. So I was like, maybe it's not important to make this number right now. And her talking about grace and kind of exploration and just forgiving and taking time, like I thought that was really helpful actually. Like that maybe it's you don't maybe you also don't need to scale, like right, like to the extent of like these big huge people that we emulate. Like maybe it's okay just to find like balance in all parts of your life too. I don't know. That's what I got from the
I
conversation.
love that you just said that because I think at its core, your business is yours. You get to make the decision. You get to make the choice about how your business is, first of all, how you create your business, but then how your business evolves. You get to make that choice. And so, yeah, if you're not looking to scale, you don't have to scale. I think so that's like the premise, right? Like
Yeah.
that's the foundation of it all is what do you want? What are your long-term goals and what's going to help you get there? If you're looking to scale, this is how you do it though.
Yeah. 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 Loud and clear. Good.
Yes.
Let's close it out. That was like boom. Right there. Mic drop, Rachel Lubchansky.
Mm-mm.
You're such a
All right,
star, Rachel.
friends. Oh, you are too. Right back at you, Ron. I'm
Bam.
excited about next week. We've got a great guest, and we look forward to seeing you all then. All
Boom.
right. With that, see ya.
See ya.